Welcome back to the Tennis Doctors, where three physicians discuss the world of men's professional tennis. Joining me, as always, Dr. Arjun Watani. Arjun, welcome.
Hey, great to be back again.
And Dr. Bilal Ahmed.
Hey, good to be back again as well.
I'm Dr. Jay Schreither. So we're going to do our U.S. Open draw preview. We're doing this actually on Tuesday. We're already two matches in, but it was kind of helpful. It gave us a one round to assess each section. We had some big upsets. We'll talk about different players. It made us not put our predictions. We'll still call them out because we had talked them on predictions that maybe fell flat on their faces. But we're going to do this. We're going to go quarter by quarter again, just trying to talk about what things look like. So we're going to start right at the top quarter. So the top quarter is the quarter where Daniil Medvedev, the world's #1 ranked player, he won his first round match. And other notable seeds in this section, Medvedev has the first seed he would play based on available players right now would be Nick Kyrgios in the fourth round. They're the only two seeds in their section. If you look across the way for quarterfinal opponents, now you're talking about Carreño Busta, Diminar, Kachanov, and FAA as your seeds. And then Jack Draper is kind of a sleeper. He's got FAA tomorrow as an opponent. Maybe as some of you are watching or listening, that match will already be decided. But with this, Bilal, for me, I think this section is all about Medvedev Kyrgios, that fourth rounder. Kyrgios has a good head-to-head. He's 3-1, but all three of his wins were in best of three, and he lost the only best of five match. Do you put Medvedev as a heavy favorite to come out of this section? Do you think it's 50-50 with Kyrgios? Anyone else you think I'm leaving out? Because I really think it comes down to that match, and who wins that match will probably win the whole section.
Yeah, agreed. I think if it comes down to those two guys in the fourth round, the way things play out, I think it's reasonable to say one of those two guys probably takes a quarter. I mean, there's some sleepers in here for sure. I mean, JJ Wolf had an incredible win against Baptiste Agut. Then I think Jack Draper also has a decent shot of upsetting FAA. So I think there's a chance that some of these other guys could, have a break at a time where this tournament is full of some potential surprises. So, but focusing on that match in particular, I like Kyrgios right now. I've said it again and again. I think this summer has been a good one for him, and I think given his last matchup with Medvedev, I think that gives him a little more confidence knowing that he can take him out. And as I said before, he's the kind of guy who loves to rise up to occasion to take out these big guns, especially #1 seed. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was impressed against Kokkinakis in the first round. I think a lot of people felt maybe he'd be a little flat. He just took care of business. And that's the weird thing, Arjun, about Nick Kyrgios. He's now winning routine matches. It felt like even at Wimbledon, he struggled in the first round. He had ups and downs, especially against lower ranked players. But this summer, he's been very much, if it's somebody he's supposed to beat, he's going to beat them.
Yeah.
And that's why I think for the first time, I think maybe in a long time, I can safely feel I don't think he's going to lose to Bonzi. And I don't think he's going to lose as well as JJ Wolf or Alejandro Tabilo are playing. I don't think he's going to lose before that fourth rounder.
I 100% agreed. I was wowed by how he kept it together in especially the first two sets, and then winning the third set decided in a tiebreaker. I also listened to his post-match interview, and they asked him how did he focus? How did he, like one of his best friends on the tour, Kokkinakis? He said like Kokkinakis is one of his best friends. There's only two people on the tour that he'll actually talk to after he retires and until he dies. Which is a pretty big statement. And he said all he did was focus. He tried to not look at him and try to focus on hitting the ball. And that for any other player is a routine thing, but for Nick Kyrgios, that is the way he will win championships, and that's needed because he has a talent to win. He needs a mentality, and he's shown in that interview and in this match that he has. He's in a different mindset right now. He's out there like Mamba mentality for sure. Fourth round, I think it'll come down to Medvedev and Kyrgios. My money would be on Kyrgios right there, and because their last matchup, Kyrgios won. I think Kyrgios, I don't know what their head-to-head exactly is off the top of my head. I think Kyrgios won 3-1.
3-1 Kyrgios, but Medvedev won the only match, which was at the Australian Open, I believe last year, right? At 2021.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then, yeah, can Kyrgios keep it together for the best 3 out of 5? Well, if he can do it against Kokkinakis and use that same mentality against Medvedev, I think he can. Sleepers here, not really a sleeper, but I think PCB is gonna make the quarterfinals on the other half of this section. I think Jack Draper is a big sleeper. He could really make a run to the fourth round easily. I think PCB has him beat there though. FAA, I don't believe he can beat Jack Draper at this point in time. That's I'll keep it at that. I've lost a lot of faith in him.
Well, I'm the FAA truther on this in this show. I don't know what to expect. Honestly, I think that Jack Draper match is 50-50, and we like looked dumb. He could win that match 2-2-2 and be super routine. He could blow that match in 3 or 4 sets. I just don't think he just has some matches. The way he lost, was it to Cam Norrie? He had a really bad loss to Cam Norrie, and then Casper Ruud. I think he had a terrible loss to Casper Ruud. By terrible, I mean it wasn't even competitive, and it's shocking. And so that's the thing that worries me about FA is he could no-show PCB. My thing is I think we got to give Daniil Medvedev some props. He rolled through his first round match. I know his summer has not been awesome. I do think it's a different matter of taking 3 sets out of 5 on him on a hard court. Yeah.
The caveat to Medvedev's win, though, it was against a player that I've actually played against when I was 12 years old, Stefan Kozlov.
No shine on you, Arjun. If you've played against them, that probably means they shouldn't be a top contender at a Grand Slam.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't think Stefan Kozlov has what it takes to win at this level. He's a great challenger player, great American junior, but he has made it to this level, and so props to him. But I don't think
he's at his ceiling. Yeah, my thing is, again, it's just really hard for me to pick Nick Kyrgios. I gather both of you are picking Kyrgios to win this section. It sounds like.
Yeah,
I'm picking Med. I just think that on paper he has the toughest draw of any big seed because he'd have to play Kyrgios and FAA back to back in theory if they were both there, or PCB to make the semis.
Yeah.
I think he's up for it. I don't think that. I think he'll win that Kyrgios match. I think like 4 setter, but we'll see. We'll find out. That's going to be a Sunday night blockbuster, I think, if we get there. Let's switch gears, because this second section, before yesterday, we said this second section was interesting, and then all hell broke loose in this section. So remember, the top seeds don't exist in this section anymore. So the top seed in this section was Stefanos Tsitsipas, who lost the first 11 games of his match and lost in 4 to Galan. Full credit to Galan for pulling it out after losing 8 match points. And then Taylor Fritz, who lost to Brandon Holt. All credit to Brandon Holt, but this is his very, very first Grand Slam win at age 24, biggest win of his career. They've known each other since they were kids, which probably helped. It'd be like Arjun playing Stefan Kozlov in the first round of the U.S. Open, right? He wasn't really intimidated, but bad losses for both of them, and we'll talk about them in a minute. We want to focus on the guys who are in the draw. So now you're looking at the top quarterfinalist the only seed left out of these 8 guys is Matteo Berrettini. There are no other seeds in his path. And yeah, there's Davidovich Fokina, Galan is there, Fucsovic, Murray is there. It's really hard not to see Berrettini, if he's healthy, getting to the quarters from that section. And then you switch to the other side. Now, Casper Ruud is a high seed, and he's in this section, and we got to give him props. I mean, in theory, based on seeding, he's got an easy road, but he gets Van Rijthoven, who had a big 5-set comeback win, saved multiple match points in the 3rd set. Dangerous player for Ruud, a guy who can hit him off the court. Then you got Tommy Paul and Seb Korda. You got Bandish Sanjulp, who made the quarters last year. And then you got Holtz, who I was impressed by. I think he's a good, gritty player. He's going to be a tough out. I don't know who's going to come out. I mean, Ruud seems like the odds-on pick, but if he goes down, this bottom section becomes very interesting. So I'm thinking it's going to be Berrettini and probably Van de Sanchop. I think Van de Sanchop's had the tough run with draws. He got Nadal at Wimbledon. He got Nadal at the French. He got Medvedev at the U.S. Open. I think he's been pretty solid, and he's a tough out. But I think this is Berrettini's quarter to lose all of a sudden. If he loses, then I don't know who to pick. Probably Casper, but who knows? What are your feelings about? We'll talk about Tsitsipas and Fritz in a minute, but let's talk about the guys left. Who do you think is going to come out?
Yeah, I think guys. I mean, it's obviously hard to not pick Berrettini, but that being said, a potential Murray third round is something I think could be really interesting. Not because of the matchup and the names, but because I think actually the style of play could be problematic for Berrettini, a guy who's going to get balls back, a guy who has a solid return where service probably not as effective as he's probably used to.
Mm.
And Murray's clearly motivated. He's not obviously he's not making the results he used to, but he has had subtle indications that he has the game still there. So I think it's gonna be exciting to see what that can potentially do for him. If he grabs a set, you never know where he goes from there. So that's an interesting one for me. And then the guy who I think actually has a huge opportunity here is actually Tommy Paul. I think he would have very little problem against Casper Ruud. Not to say there's anything against Casper Ruud. He's a phenomenal player, obviously Grand Slam finalist, but I don't think hard court really suits his game, and I don't think he's very confident at the U.S. Open as it is right now. So I think Tommy Paul, if he just happens to stay away from playing more sets and more extended matches, he has a good shot here. It's gonna be interesting against him and Korda. I think Korda and him both, just played a 5-setter, so we'll see who's fresher in that matchup. I think Korda has a huge opportunity too. So I think one of those two guys has a chance to beat Casper Ruud, and I want to see them play potentially Berrettini in this quarter.
Yeah, Arjun, I think Bilal hit the nail on the head. We talked about opportunity at Wimbledon. We circled this section. This is the section of opportunity. And it was, believe Cam Norrie who came out of that section of opportunity, made the semis. This is like the quarter section of opportunity. One of these guys is going to make a quarter at the U.S. Open, right?
Yeah.
Casper Ruud's in that category too, because he's never been deep at the U.S. Open. But I'm not, if I'm Brandon Holt, am I terrified of anyone when I draw? I saw an interview today. He looked pretty relaxed. If I'm Van de Sandschulp, I'm looking at this, I can make another quarterfinal. And then for Seb Korda, I think if it's kind of now or never for Seb Korda. I know he's a late bloomer. He is got pedigree. He's definitely got tools. He's a big win against Nadal. He should have beaten Nadal, blew that match. He beat Alcaraz on clay. I think if you're Seb Korda, you have to look at this and be like, I need to make a quarterfinal here. This is my home slam. I'm going to have home support. Who do you think is going to come out and play Berrettini in the quarters?
From this draw, exactly what you both said. I think Berrettini gets to the quarters, and there's so many sleepers. Brandon Holt, shout out to him, former college player, really digging in deep and playing another American, Taylor Fritz, and having the will and the belief to win. I think he has a shot to win another round, but then you have Van de Sandschulp, who has a little more experience than him. Tommy Paul, Korda. I am picking Korda for this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I am picking Korda for this one and over Tommy Paul. I don't think Tommy Paul actually has it in him to make it to the quarters.
Interesting.
He's someone I think who may bust out this quarter, but I had opposite predictions for Taylor Fritz, so my predictions aren't too strong ever. It's really any one of these guys, Casper Ruud, Raitoven, they can all catch fire and make it to the quarter. So I have Berrettini. It's like playing roulette with the other half of the quarter, honestly.
Well, Matteo Berrettini deserves a little bit of luck because he got hurt, missed the French Open, got COVID before Wimbledon looked good. This is an easy draw for him, I think, as easy as you can imagine, given he was the 14th seed, 13th seed. This broke perfectly for him. Before we move on, each of you has a favorite who got lost in the first round. I'm going to give you each a minute to give a little eulogy. Arjun, what's wrong with Stefanos Tsitsipas? I mean, not Arjun, Bilal.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Tsitsipas?
I think it's just a matter of this guy just doesn't have a brain. I'm starting to feel like he just doesn't know how to click when it comes to early round matches, and I feel like there's something just doesn't have that mentality of I just need to get through this match. For some reason, I think he has a mental block and doesn't execute the game that he has, and it's kind of unfortunate because I think there's an opportunity for players who are lower ranked to feel like he does have a little bit to grab at and chew, and he doesn't really stomp on the gas when he needs to, like Medvedev does, for example, in a bagel and throw in a bagel in one of his sets in the first round and steamroll. So I just feel like Tsitsipas doesn't know how to steamroll early on when it matters, and I think that kind of does depend on how you play later on in the tournament. Where it's cracked open for him in the past has been in the Australian Open and the French, but for some reason it doesn't happen here at the U.S. Open. So I'm not sure it's the court speed or the crowd or whatever it is, but he just does not click here.
Yeah, and part of it, and we're going to talk about this argument with Fritz. Part of it, I think, for these top guys, it's hard to have an aura when you keep losing these matches, and I think that it's a lot of it's belief. These guys are really good that they're playing. Tsitsipas doesn't scare anyone right now. We've talked about, we joked about it, being like, oh, if you want to beat a top 5 player, get your first top 5 win. Tsitsipas right now. It still sort of is. Arjun, Taylor Fritz, you had big high hopes for him. Top 10 in the race without Wimbledon points, and he would probably be top 6 in the race with Wimbledon points. He's had a great year. He's made a lot of strides, and he lays an egg. I mean, you got to give Brandon Holt full credit. But that is a match that if you're Taylor Fritz, maybe you drop a set because the guy's grinding and knows your game, but you got to win that match. And he wasn't able to get it done. Your 1 minute thoughts on Taylor Fritz?
To be a top 5, top 10 player as Taylor Fritz is, he really blew that. I think learning from this match, and also Tsitsipas' match that he lost to Galan. I think you have so many players that are working hard that are not the top players. Like when these top players are winning, you kind of forget about the rest of the crowd. But these players are putting in the hours, putting in the work, and really they deserve. They're here in this tournament for a reason. And obviously the top players have a few details that make a difference in many of the matches, but you also have to give credit to the hard work that a lot of these players put in, especially the qualifiers who qualify through winning 3 tough matches to get to this position. And they're even more motivated. They're even more in the groove after playing a few matches to upset some big time players. I think Taylor Fritz long term, he still has what it takes. I think Brandon Holt is a phenomenal player who knew how to play the game against Fritz, and I think I'm giving credit to Brandon Holt here for stepping up to the occasion and using his momentum from the qualities to take the win.
Let's move to the last section, which ties in the match that's going on live right now. I'm staring at every once in a while you guys talk. This is well, let's skip down. We're going to skip the third section, come back, because Nadal's playing live right now. So let's talk about Nadal's section. That's the 4th section. Not everyone is into the second round, but we know who the contenders are. Rafa Nadal is the top seed. His other high seeds in his section, right? So you're talking about Cam Norrie, Shapovalov, Rublev, Tiafoe. Nadal would get Fonini if he gets past Hijikata. Hijikata, your teammate of Arjun Watane's brother in college, giving a fight. Had 3 break points to break on the 4th, all stayed by Nadal. But Nadal is the heavy favorite, health permitting. Fonini, Kekmanovic, Tiafoe, these are roadblocks, but you'd expect him to be favored. But Bilal, is there anyone else you've seen that could bother him here, right? So Shapovalov won a match in 5 days. He's been terrible form. Holger Rune's been in terrible form. John Isner's 37. To me, I think this is Nadal's section to lose, unless he gets hurt. I do wonder a little bit about Cam Norrie. He's been in great form. I actually would probably pick Norrie to make the quarters. He's been awesome, I think, the whole summer, and he's very underrated. I just don't see Norrie beating Nadal. So I see Nadal probably beating Norrie and getting to the semis. But how do you think this shakes out? And do you get a chance to see any of Nadal tonight?
No, I haven't seen him so far tonight, just watching peripherally from what everybody's kind of saying about him. But I feel like, he's going to work his way into this match. He's going to win it. He's already, dropped a set, but I feel like sometimes it's good to drop a set early, just kind of find your range. So I don't think the Fognini matchup is necessarily as concerning as it was maybe 3 years ago or back when Fognini was a different player and gave him trouble at the US Open, as we know. But I think if he can break through this match and find his gear, I think some of these guys actually are good for him to warm up his way through the tournament. And I think Tiafoe could be interesting. I think that's somebody who we've talked about in the past who has an opportunity to shine in a tournament like this, given the crowd support, given the entertainment of his style of play. He likes to kind of play up to this level of a match. So I think that's actually one of the bigger threats, and I think it's someone who I think Nadal would have maybe hoped would be on the other side of this quarter. I do think he would have a better matchup against Norrie than a lot of other players who Norrie's taken out this summer, just given that there's not a lot of weapons Norrie has that really troubles a guy like Nadal. He's not really a big hitter, doesn't hit through the ball very easily. So I think a counterpuncher for Nadal and another lefty, he would have no problem. So yeah, I think actually the interesting one could be Tiafoe, and we'll see how Nadal does in that situation if they play in the 4th round.
Arjun,
I feel like with what's been going on in this tournament with all the upsets, I have to figure out some kind of upset in this quarter. I think Nadal will make it to the quarters. I think Rublev has a good shot here. Sorry, I take that back. Sorry, I take that back. I meant Shapovalov over Rublev in that little mini section there. The other one across from Shapovalov, I think it Cam Norrie versus Isner next round. I think Isner beats Rune. I think it's going to be between Isner and Cam Norrie. I have a hunch Isner is making a run to the quarters. And that hunch is just based on watching him a couple matches in Atlanta, a couple matches in some of the Masters. I think he's playing well. He's 37, but his serve is just as strong as it was when he was 22.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of free points off that. In the other section I skipped over, Tiafoe's section, I don't think he beats Schwartzman. I don't think Tiafoe will beat Schwartzman. I think Schwartzman sees Nadal in the quarters. I don't think
fourth round. Yeah.
I can't pick him there.
So
fourth round, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Shapovalov and Rublev. Both went to 5 in their first round. It doesn't mean you can't win. Isner and Rune. Speaking of Rune, so Hijikata, here's my 30 seconds. I've watched a lot of this match. Arjun, I know you know his game well.
Yeah.
And he's feisty. Full credit for coming out and winning the first set against Rafa Nadal and Ash. But as Bilal said, there's 2 different ways you can go from this if you're Rinky Hijikata. Way number 1 is you go like Holger Rune, who won a set off Djokovic last year, made a big jump. He's a top 30 player. I mean, that's ambitious for anyone, but that was a sign that he was going to make a jump.
Yeah.
Way number 2 is a guy named Taro Daniel, very nice pro, who won the first set against Nadal in 2017. Nadal ended up rolling the rest of the tournament. And everyone was like, what's wrong with Nadal? Drops a set to Taro Daniel, who's hitting the ball beautifully. And, that was sort of his ceiling, was a great hitter, got Nadal into a rhythm, and then, he blew him out of the water. And I just think Hijikata, my read on him, great weapons, great serve. Hard to see him really improving past what he is now, but got to give him a shout out. Let's move on to section 3. Section 3 now. I saved this for last because I actually think now that we have a good sense that Medvedev and Kyrgios in section 1 and Berrettini in section 2 and Nadal in section 4, this is, in my mind, the most open at this point from a pure, I'm not sure who's going to come out of it, right? So the seeds in this section, Alcaraz, the high seed. On the other side, he's got Percox and Sinner. Sinner came through today. You've got Dimitrov floating around, Nakashima, Musetti, all kind of wedged in one pretty loaded side. And then on Alcaraz's side, it's, he's got Federico Coria, be expected to win that one. But Borna Koric, 3rd round, circle that one. But Jensen Brooksby is playing Borna Koric, and Jensen Brooksby loves playing on these courts. You've got Dan Evans and Marin Cilic, both have been in great form. But to me, this is the one section, I think it's really hard to pin anybody. I was on the Sinner train, and then Sinner struggled for 5 sets and finally pulled it out. I wouldn't be shocked if you told me Marin Cilic gets to the semis here. I wouldn't be shocked. It could be Borna Koric. It could be Sinner. It could be Percox. I mean, what do you make of this section? I would take the field over Alcaraz, for example, if I'm picking amongst these guys left.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly the one that there's no clear favorite to me in this section is kind of interesting because I think Alcaraz didn't look super dominant or comfortable in his match. At the same time, Sinner going 5 already is not a good sign for a guy who I've mentioned in the past. I think he needs to preserve all of his energy to get through to the end, not because he's going to fatigue early, but he needs weapons, and I don't know how much he can endure for 5 set matches out of 7 rounds. So I don't know who to pick here. I can see something weird happening. I can see like Dimitrov beating Sinner. I don't know why. That's just sticking out to me. I feel like that's something odd like that can happen here. I think the guy who quietly can make his way into the quarters again, like you said, or into semis is again, Marin Cilic. He's been here in the past. He's won this tournament before. I'm sure if there's a time for him to feel confident, it could be right now, just given that he's had a pretty decent year for a guy who's kind of, not his peak anymore.
Right.
Dan Evans too. I don't know. There's really no one here who I feel super confident picking and saying, watch this person besides Alcaraz, and that's a given, but I think Alcaraz may struggle.
Alcaraz is box office. I mean, I watched a lot of his match on a plane today, so I was a captive audience. And the guy, you watch because it's kind of like watching a great athlete who's hasn't figured it out, like a Ja Morant in basketball. Someone who every 5 minutes, Alcaraz will do something where the announcers will go crazy. Like James Blake was commentating the match, and he'll just be like, "Whoa!" And that was James Blake was a very athletic, explosive player, and Alcaraz is a whole new level, right?
Yeah.
It was so funny because at some point James Blake was telling Chris Fowler, he said, "Oh, he needs to play safer," and then they kind of called him out on it. Andy Roddick texted them and was like, "Who are you to tell anyone to play
No
safer?"
way.
Yeah.
That's actually amazing.
No, in the moment, James Blake's like, "Well, I don't know if I'm the right person, but that is what he needs to do right here."
Yeah.
So for me, Alcaraz is just so much fun to watch, but it doesn't always translate into winning the big points. I'm gonna stick with my guts. I think maybe it's my wishful thinking, Arjun. I really want to see Alcaraz Sinner part 3. They played at Wimbledon. They played at Umag. You know, Bilal, you don't like that matchup anymore?
I don't think it's happening. I don't know. I don't trust these guys to make it through. I just don't think they have the 3 out of 5 in them yet. I mean, Sinner accordingly 5 again, as I mentioned, that doesn't show me that they're not necessarily not focused, but they don't know how to close these quickly, you know. And I think you need
Part of it, and we talked about Sinner before. Part of it is Sinner. I don't view him as having a plan B. I mean, his plan A is great, and he won this match with his plan A, but he barely hits a slice. He really comes to net on approach shots, which is reasonable. Like he doesn't really have a drop shot that's effective. He hits the same type of ball. Like there is something like Gil Gross was talking about Sinner and Nadal and how like Sinner bothers Nadal for a bit, but Nadal eventually figures it out because the rhythm is the same, the pace is the same, the shot is the same. It's the same weight of shot. And it's a very difficult weight of shot to hit with. A lot of guys can't hang with it. But if you're a guy who can sit there and take it for a bit, then you're going to be fine. And if you figure it out, then that's it. You know, then there's nothing else to do. And for Alcaraz, I think it's the opposite in a way. He shoots himself on the foot way too much, Arjun. Like he just misses too many easy returns that he wasn't missing like 6 months ago. But I think guys have figured out big points on the ad court. You just serve the Alcaraz backhand. It's a very impressive shot, but he misses that shot a lot. And that's why I think, honestly, if Alcaraz just made some more backhand returns, he would go from being 50-50 to come out of the section to heavy favorite, probably could win the title. That's how big that difference would swing for me if he could just get more returns in play.
Yeah, I love Alcaraz. I think he's box office, just as you said, he's electric with the crowd, and I'm not convinced. I feel like a Brooksby right now who's playing really well. I think he has what it takes also to make it to the 4th round. Alcaraz and Brooksby, I think that's going to be a Showtime match in round 3. Who wins that? I feel like I have to go with Brooksby right here.
Wow.
Alcaraz, I think he has what it takes in the future. Right now, I think he's still a little immature with his shot making ability, but he's exciting to watch. And the caveat being that New York will get behind him, and I think he will play better with a New York crowd. Hercox, I'm looking at people who are winning outright, like in 3 sets here. Hercox, a dominating performance against Oscar Oddie, who's a great player. We all know. Musetti and Sinner, I'm not.
The first rule of the Tennis Doctors podcast is you can't trust FAA. The second rule of the Tennis Doctors podcast is you can't trust Fritz. But the third rule of the Tennis Doctors podcast, you cannot trust Hubert Hercox.
That's fair. That's fair. And then I'm also looking at people who have been sleepers in previous tournaments, just really trying to make their statement wins this U.S. Open. So people like Brandon Nakashima, Chris Eubanks, first Grand Slam win. Them two. I don't think Eubanks beats Sinner, but I think, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sinner goes 4 or 5 sets with him. And Nakashima, I think he is someone who may beat Dimitrov, make it to round 3, and be a threat to Sinner on the other side. You have James Duckworth. From this section, the quarterfinals, I'm going with Brooksby and Hercox.
Wow.
That's what it comes down to for me.
And your semifinals is Hercox?
Semifinals, it is Hercox, yeah.
Jumping from Fritz to Hercox is jumping from one sinking ship to another, man.
It is, but one of these guys will make a run. It might not be all at once, but it's playing roulette with them.
I picked Sinner initially, Bilal, to come out of this section. I feel not great about that after seeing what happened today. And I'm gonna I'm going to go with Carlos Alcaraz. I think he's going to figure it. I'm going to find a way. He'll scrape through. I think he'll get destroyed in the semis, but I think he's going to find a way tough matches, and he'll come out of this section and be the stronger for it, make his first Grand Slam.
I think the hype of New York is too much for him right now. I think he'll get better, but he's gonna have to watch how big he hits on big points.
Bilal?
I'm thinking, I don't know why, but I just have a feeling Still just going to pull through the semi. I feel like he has experience. He has the steady head here to maybe figure out some of these young guns who are kind of inconsistent and erratic. So Alcaraz will have his moment. I just don't think it's right now.
So final minute of the podcast. Give me your quick 1 minute defense. Arjun, who's winning the title?
Ooh.
If you're not ready, I'll go. I am going to pick Medvedev, and I know he hasn't had a great summer. I know both you guys are picking him to lose in the 4th round. I know Nadal's my favorite player and looks pretty awesome right now in terms of his groundies. I just think I'd rather not put my money on Nadal with his injury recently. I think that's 50-50 if he finishes the tournament. I think that's something that can flare up. It's been flared up even recently. And I think Medvedev is just too solid for most of the tour. I think he's just really, really tough to beat over 5 sets. And I think it's a boring pick. I don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting sort of last couple rounds, but I think Medvedev will quietly work his way and win the title.
I'm calling Matteo Berrettini to win the whole thing. I am excited. I think this is a U.S. Open of upsets. I think there's going to be a new winner this U.S. Open, and I don't like how Medvedev played over the last few tournaments. Credit to his win today, or yesterday. Yeah. But I think Matteo Berrettini, he's shown promise through the grass court season. Not the past few tournaments, but I think he had some good tennis in him. And I think right now it's going to come together. In best of 5 matches, I think any rusty shots, rusty games, rusty sets, Matteo Berrettini will overcome that over 5 sets. Yeah, Berrettini's my guy to win.
I've learned the hard way multiple times as a Federer fan growing up, and more well, you cannot go against Rafa Nadal. I think the deeper he gets, I'll say it again. If he makes the second week, he's winning this tournament. Doesn't matter who's on the other side of that. I would love to see him and Medvedev play in the final, but I'd also love to see him and Kyrgios play. So I think there's a chance if Kyrgios can focus again, let's see if he makes another slam final. I don't think he'll win it, but could happen again. And I think if Nadal, stays healthy, there's no chance he's not going to win this again.
Well, we'll see. Nadal is on his 4th match point right now against Rinky.
Yeah. So. Yeah, he can't finish this match. He can't win the tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
Arjun, my last question for Berrettini. I think it's reasonable. I think if you lined up the contenders, you can argue he's the 3rd most likely, just given the fact he doesn't have to play Kyrgios or Medvedev until the semis. He has played Nadal until the final. But what does that last couple of rounds look for him to win, right? Because we've talked about this at Wimbledon. I think there's even less of a chance on a hard court. He's not beating Nadal in the U.S. Open final. So he's got to get matchups that are favorable to him, and he's not a good matchup against Medvedev either. So I feel like his route to winning is Kyrgios upsets Medvedev, Berrettini beats Kyrgios in the semis, and then he newbie. He gets Sinner or Alcaraz, who gets nervous in the first slam final. For me, the problem with Berrettini is always against Nadal and Djokovic at the end of the slams. I don't think he can beat them. And I don't think I think he just does not have the game to beat them if they're playing well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have him meeting Kyrgios in the semis, and then someone outside of Nadal. I feel I'm putting money on Nadal getting injured, or a Alcaraz or Brooksby, someone Cilic, just pushing him to the limit and maybe tiring him out for the finals, or actually winning in the semis, beating him. So it's a hot pick, I know, but I can't trust Nadal right now, and I'm going for Berrettini.
Well, I'm excited to come back. Why don't we come back and revisit maybe after the long weekend, before the quarters, the semis? We'll see what develops. Big day of upsets yesterday, fewer upsets today. Nadal still hasn't finished Hijikata. At least Hijikata can say that he saved 4 match points against Rafa Nadal in Arthur Ashe Stadium to his kids one day. Arjun Watani, Bilal Ahmed, thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Peter.
Nice.